The room was stiff, quiet in that fake way government buildings always are. Another hearing. More paper shuffling. Nothing new. Then Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, steady hands, eyes locked ahead. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout. Just one sentence low, clear. If we're going to deport undocumented spouses, do we start with the First Lady? That was it. No follow-up. No need. The air froze. Phones buzzed. Interns looked up. Everyone heard it, and everyone knew exactly who she meant, even though she didn't say her name. 13 seconds. One question, everything changed. Deport your migrant wife. The moment Jasmine Crockett's words hit the air, the internet lit up. It started with a few shocked tweets. Then came the hashtag. Hashtag deport your migrant wife. Short, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Within minutes, it was everywhere. The clip of her asking the unspoken question played on loop. You didn't even need context to feel it. People heard that one sentence and froze. It wasn't loud, but it hit hard. Conservative media pounced fast. Cable shows called her rude, reckless, and disrespectful. They said she had crossed a line. But at the same time, progressive voices flooded and calling her bold, fearless, and finally someone who wasn't afraid to say what others only whispered. It was no longer just about politics. It was about truth and who gets to say it out loud inside the White House. The reaction was anything but calm. Trump, watching the clip on replay, snapped. She said my wife should be deported, he shouted, even though everyone knew Crockett hadn't actually used Melania's name. But the damage was done. He wanted heads to roll. Why didn't they shut her mic off? Why didn't Gentry stop it? His staff stood frozen, unsure how to calm a storm that was already out of control. Behind the scenes, Republicans panicked. The question now wasn't just what to say, but what not to say. Should they defend Melania? Should they release her immigration records? Could they risk opening a can of worms they'd kept sealed since 2016? Every option came with risk. Silent, they look guilty. Speak up, people start asking for proof. So they tried to do both. Say enough to distract, but not enough to explain. Meanwhile, the public took the story and ran with it. TikTok filled with clips of people crying, speaking out, remembering. A woman in Arizona, face red and eyes swollen, looked into her phone and said, "My husband got deported over a 6-week visa delay. We begged for mercy. Nobody listened. And now she gets silence." Her video hit 1 million views in a day. More followed. A man in Houston said his brother was deported for signing a form late. A teenage girl in Nevada talked about her mom getting taken while she was at school. It all felt too familiar, too painful. Crockett's line didn't just spark a debate. It gave people permission to say what they'd buried for years. Immigration lawyers chimed in too. We've seen mothers deported for using the wrong social security number to get a cleaning job, one said on national TV. But this is different. Their voices were calm, but the frustration was loud. Everyone knew this wasn't a new issue. It had just finally been spoken in the right place. In front of the right cameras, conservative talk shows tried to flip the story. Melania married a successful American, one host said. That makes all the difference. But it didn't land the way they hoped. Comment sections filled up fast, so marriage erases the rules. Tell that to my cousin who married a citizen and still got deported. People were no longer buying it. And then Jasmine Crockett started sharing what she was getting. Not the hate that came too, but the other messages. The quiet ones. The long ones. The emotional ones. My mom was deported in 2009 for a late renewal. Thank you for saying what we couldn't. We've been waiting for someone to ask that question for years. She didn't post them all, But the few she shared hit like thunder. The story grew bigger than her. Bigger than Melania. It wasn't just about one woman anymore. It was about the whole system. Protest signs started popping up outside courthouses and congressional buildings. One law, one standard. Say her visa type. Why is she different? Behind closed doors, Republican staffers scrambled. One leaked memo read, "If this gets legs, we're done explaining it." Even longtime allies started whispering, "We buried this for a reason." The fear wasn't just about Crockett's words. It was about what they unlocked, the old documents, the questions they couldn't answer, the contradictions they had always hoped would be forgotten. But the people hadn't forgotten. They just needed a moment, a crack in the wall. Crockett gave them that. And now, nobody knew how to close it again. The pressure had been building for days. And it finally hit the screen when Jasmine Crockett sat down across from Latrice Greer on Nation Talk Tonight. The lights were sharp, the set quiet. Latrice didn't ease into it. She leaned in, eyes locked, and asked the question everyone had been spinning around. "Did you mean the First Lady should be deported?" Crockett didn't blink. She didn't fumble or soften her words. She just said it. No one gets a free pass because of who they marry. That line shot like a bullet through every screen in the country. Within minutes, it was all over TikTok, cut into short clips with bold captions. It aired on cable news every hour. It made it into late-night monologues and protest chants. Some called it truth, others called it cruel. But everyone was talking about it. Then the numbers dropped. A new round of polling showed public trust in Trump's immigration policy was slipping fast, especially among young voters, suburban women, and Latino families. What started as a clip was now shaping opinions. The White House saw it coming and called for an emergency meeting. Not just a usual press huddle, this one was serious. Behind closed doors, GOP leaders sat around a table and faced the truth. None of them wanted to say out loud, "This isn't about Melania anymore. This is about the whole system." Reporters, now armed with a story people actually cared about, dug in deeper. They pulled old interviews, visa records, timelines. They asked again and again, what kind of visa did Melania use when she first started modeling in the U.S.? And every time, the response was the same. No comment. Melania stayed quiet. Not one tweet, not one post, not even a photo op, nothing. For some, that silence felt classy. But for more and more people, it started to feel like something else. Protection, power, privilege, the kind of quiet you can afford only when no one's coming for you. Across the country, something shifted. This wasn't just a political firestorm. Anymore, it became something deeply personal. In classrooms, students gave speeches. In churches, candles were lit. On sidewalks, people stood with posters of loved ones who had been deported over paperwork mistakes. A teenager in Chicago posted a video from her bedroom. "My mom got deported for signing one form wrong. I was 10. Why does she get to stay just because she married the right man?" It wasn't just the noise now. It was the weight. This story had become a mirror. People weren't talking about Melania or Trump. They were talking about themselves. Their families, their fears, what the rules mean, who the rules bend for. Trump finally spoke. At a campaign stop, surrounded by reporters shouting questions, he grabbed the mic and said sharply, "Low blow. She's done more for this country than that Congresswoman ever will." His voice was tight, his face tense. He looked angry. But what stood out wasn't what he said, it was what he didn't. He never denied it. He didn't say Melania followed every rule. He didn't say she had nothing to hide. He just called it disrespectful and walked away. That silence, his and hers, said more than any speech could have. and the country heard it. Melania never said a word. No interview, no tweet, no photo in front of a waving flag. Just silence. And after a while, that silence didn't feel like grace. It felt like a choice. A way of saying, I don't have to explain myself while millions of others never even get the chance. The White House didn't release her visa records either. They hoped the noise would fade, that people would move on like they always do. But this time, something stayed in classrooms. Students brought it up during civics discussions. In courtrooms, immigration lawyers quoted it while defending families. In churches, pastors spoke about fairness and how justice can't work if it only serves the powerful. A high school junior stood up during a debate class and said, "If that lady's visa is untouchable, then what does that make my aunt?" The teacher didn't answer. No one did. But no one forgot it either. Some lawmakers tried to push for new bills, ones that would require full visa transparency for the spouses of elected officials. None of them passed, but they got headlines. They got airtime. They got people asking the right questions. At a diner in Ohio, someone printed out Crockett's quote and taped it next to the cash register. It read, "No one gets a free pass, just because their husband lives in the White House." Underneath, someone had scribbled in pen, "Truth lives longer than power." The country never got an answer. The silence stayed sealed. The papers never came out, but the question stuck. And maybe, in the end, that's the part that matters. Because questions don't need permission. They don't need approval. They just need to be said. And maybe that's what truth really is. Not a headline, not a statement, but a question that never fully leaves the room.